is up, folks? It's your man Richie Rich back for good with another Richie Rich retrospective review. And I just want to say a huge, super big shout out to the richest team on earth, because y'all know that it's not only just my year, but it's your years. And I want to really thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for liking these videos, sharing them, and commenting, because we all know that the road to 10K is only a sniff away. So folks, I got a real treat for you. It's a movie that again, when I talk about movies that really defined the 2000s, a very warmed, heart-filled romantic comedy which is actually celebrating its 20th anniversary this year in 2025. It can only possibly be Hitch, that came out in 2005. Hitch, that came out 2005, directed by Andy Tennant, and is starring, of course, the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, Will Smith, the super beautiful Eva Mendes. So as always, I always talk about the history of Hitch. When I first watched Hitch for the first time, right? This was one of the movies that I remember so fondly because I was actually in high school back in the day. This film, when it came out in 2005, I was in pretty much I believe my last year in high school. And I remember at this time, as we all know, like the pirates, there's DVD, CDs, got that new DMX baby was the big thing around this time. So I actually got, the first time I watched it was a pirated version of it. Then later down the line, I was able to get the actual DVD in there. My first impressions of Hitch is still the same feeling as I felt now on it. It's just a very cool movie. As I said, I'm someone who pretty much like adores New York Cities, and it's so funny, there's so many romantic comedies that take place of course in NYCs, and a lot of like feel good type of movies, and this is exactly what Hitch is. And when I first saw it for the first time, and of course not having a partner at that time, it was always just it's just a complete fabulous movie. The comedy blends in well with the drama moments, and it's not even though it's very light. This film is such a light-hearted movie, it doesn't ever feel corny. End of the day, it sets out what it does. It sets out what it does to do, which is really like appeal to, again, couples getting together. And it show goes on to the fact of like when men really need to step up if they really want to get this woman. Like how far will a man go to get the woman that they truly desire? And that's something I really love in the Hitch film. So I'm gonna run through the cast as always, and of course playing in the titular role, Big Willie style, Mr. Men in Black, Mr. Independence Day. Will Smith is the titular role, the leading man, as you say, in this film, right? So Will Smith, of course, it's funny. Anytime you think of Will Smith now, unfortunately, especially for majority of people, it always goes to that incident in 2022. And I'm not going to dwell too much on it because I spoke in extent about what happened on that day. If you want to check that out, check this video right here. But even to sum that out incident, especially with this movie, love can be a powerful thing. I've been in love. Yes, the CEO of the Rich team has been in love before, and I know there's people who are watching this have been in love before. For sure, when you are in that kind of position, you will do some stuff that you wouldn't usually do because you are so connected, you so badly desire this person, and you can do stupid things. As we say, we do crazy things for the people we fall in love in. I feel like Will Smith in that moment, as I said, that love that he had for Jada Pinkett never went, whereas for her partner, she always probably never even loved him to begin with. So I always look at that moment like, because you put yourself in someone's shoes, would you do that if someone ragged on your woman, or would you just take it as like it's not a big deal? I think the majority of people would just be like, it's no big deal. But I believe the way how Jada Pinkett pretty much emasculated Will for many years, this was like this type of whole thing, like, I ain't no punk, I ain't no sucker, I ain't as corny as people say. And he was standing up for all of that because Will Smith was listening. he's a very social guy. I follow him on Instagram and YouTube. He's a very social guy. So this is one of those high profile guys who I know reads the comments. You understand? So again, it's a shame thing that happened. As time goes by, now we're 3 years after the that Slapgate, the Oscar incident. I believe Will Smith is in some type of way making a comeback. He started in Bad Boys, the fourth one, which pretty got good reviews. He's made a new album. I think it was a single with Big Sean, and he seems to be doing okay. But that particular moment still will leave a dent. But as I said, Will Smith's body of work up until that point was already solid. That was the same night, unfortunately, he won the Oscar. So one of the highest moments turned out to be a lowest moment at that Oscars in 2022. But with that being said, as I said, I got a video talking about all of that. Definitely check that out. As a lot of people, even when we're talking about history, I think a lot of people, of course, were introduced to Will Smith was from the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. For me, for Richie Rich, Will Smith was a huge influence on me. He was the first person I ever saw in television was a star. Not movies, but television. When I first saw him, because when I was back in England, they used to show Fresh Prince of Bel-Air and The Simpsons as a double header. It used to be 6 o'clock in the evening. So when we were done like finishing the homework and resting from school, this used to be a double header that me and my younger brother used to watch. So I adored Will Smith like no one, but like a lot of my, even if you see some of the way my kind of style and even my mannerisms are, a lot of it has been influenced by the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, as a lot of people have even said. Even Lily Sin even talks about she was a huge fan of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and as a lot of other people. So what was really cool with Will Smith, and I talked about it before, is he was one of the ones, I believe, like Hollywood saw him that this kind of goofy 6'2" Philadelphia kid could become a leading man. And Will was one of the ones who was able to do not just only become a leading man, he was able to become a box office draw. Soon after Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was just about to end, Will Smith appeared in Bad Boys. The following year after that, he appeared in Independence Day, and then just after that, he appeared in Men in Black. Then from there, Enemy of the State happened, Wild Wild West, which is but he kept on having hit after hit after hit after these box office goals. There were some slumps here and there, but Will Smith's name just became a marquee at this time. As I said, the only real ones who were able to do this at that time, I could only believe, is like Jim Carrey, who Jim Carrey came from the sitcom In Living Color, and he was making super hits around the time which kind of paralleled with Will Smith. So Will Smith, like I said, in the 90s, you could say Will pretty much dominated the 90s. He had like the #1 television series. I believe he had the #1 movie at one point, and he even had the #1 album, because he was still making his albums for. That's what you got really. He was like a triple threat. He was having the #1 movie, and he was also doing the soundtrack for those movies. You remember Get Jiggy With It? Na 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 na. Get jiggy with it. That came out in the late 90s, and he also did the Men in Black too, which is one of my favorite themes of all time, baby. Will Smith. So when the 2000s came, and I said this many times, in 2000 you saw a shift in the style, in the fashion, in the music, and most importantly the culture. Will, which was again very genius in his part, you kind of saw him adapted his roles in the 2000s in there. So in 2000, I believe just before Hitch, he starred in iRobot, which this is a movie which I think would get more appreciated now, especially the way artificial intelligence and AI is. And I remember going to cinema to watch an iRobot. Of course, Hitch came out in 2005, and I believe the next year he had one of my favorite motivational, you could say rags to riches movie ever, Pursue Your Happiness, came out in 2006. So Will, in the 2000s, you could say he sort of like morphed into, he was like this big like action blockbuster star in the 90s. He kind of morphed into this really like dramatic actor with great performances in this, and of course Pursuit of Happiness, where he could play these like real life characters and really have these believable performances, and he does this very much in Hitch. This is one of my best performances of Will Smith came in this movie, and he does one. So Will Smith in this, he plays Alexander Hitch, Alex for short, Hitch, and he's just a date doctor in New York City. What happens in the backstory is that Will actually got rejected by his one true love. We've all been there, Rich Team, that he couldn't get because he was check this out, he was too much of a nice guy. So that girl ultimately broke his heart, and that's when he doesn't really show too much of it, but it's implied that he really fixed up his life. He got his shit together. He starts wearing like great clothing. He took care of his body. His confidence went way up, that he can now get so much. He can get girls like no matter problem. And now he's also there as a consultant to basically help guys get women find their true loves and sort them out. And one thing you really will notice with Will in this is like, this man is so charming. You see, the one in the scene I really love is when he pulls the beautiful Paula Patton. This is before, I think she was still with Robin Thicke at the time. She takes him away from all these guys as this hot chick that came in the bar, and he's able to like completely charm her. Just by like using his own style. So it's amazing how you see how Will Smith is completely charming in this, and for him playing this day doctor in there, he does an outstanding job. So playing alongside Will Smith is Eva Mendes, who's playing Sara Melas. She's someone who works as a journalist. She's reporting the news of the New York City, and they're trying to find like who is this date doctor, because the date doctor is a mystery. Because to the people, the date doctor is a mystery. No one really knows who he is. No one really finds out like who this person could be, and it's really up to Sarah. Eva Mendes is basically like trying to find out who he is. The one thing, Eva Mendes, who I believe she did modeling and she appeared in music videos. Started her career pretty much in the late 90s. I believe she was going in acting, and she was just doing like small roles as pretty much like hot Latina chick. And she also, the funny thing is, she also appeared in a music video with Will Smith. It was Miami. Oh man, you know how I used to play that song when I actually got to Florida for the first time? Amazing, yeah. So Eva Mendes, she plays it pretty well. Very beautiful, very smart and intelligent, and you do notice the chemistry between Will Smith and Eva Mendes. And for what a lot of people don't know is, at this time, it was still a big thing to have like an interracial relationship in like a big motion picture. Like they would shy away. Big movies used to shy away from this. A good example is Obsessed, that came out a couple years after this, where they implied like a black and white woman in that role. They didn't really used to show that on the screen, because even though interracial relationships that happen, especially like a black man and white woman, they didn't really want to project that on the screen too much, because a lot of, again, white men who are coming into theaters, they want to see white men, white women in relationships. So of course it's already said that, of course, Eva Mendes is a Latina, so it's not really Will kissing a white woman, he's kissing an ethnic, an Hispanic woman. But the chemistry in here is off the charts. From when they first meet in the club to when they have their second date, or when they have their first date in the war, and even the second date, even so much when Eva Mendes finds out when Will Smith is the date doctor. Did you just make that up? Hilarious scenes, and I only wish we could have seen them in more movies, but for them to win the title roles, they are great. You've got Kevin James Albert Brennaman, who from a lot of people know Kevin James from the Kings of Queens series that was in the 90s. I actually used to watch this show reruns that came out in the 2000s, but he's pretty stellar comedic actor. He pretty much works and blends in with like Will Smith's comedy. Of Will Smith's like pretty much he's the guy, he's the dude who's went through heartbreak and he managed to fix himself up, and Albert is pretty much reckless. He makes so much mistakes, he's nervous, he's really, and this is again one of the messages I get from this movie, is he's really just trying to take his balls and go for it. Like I said, like he really loves when he's really vying for Amber Valletta, who's playing Allegra Cole. Albert Brennaman is one of the, you could say, lawyers who works for works for Amber's dad. Amber's like a, again, big woman. Like her dad owns like the company, and she put all these lawyers who just are pretty much yes men. Albert has pretty much been eyeing her and saying like, this is the woman I truly want, but he just doesn't have the courage because you could say of his status in life. So he hires Alex Hitch to basically give him he hires Alex Hitch to give him that belief and that confidence, like, you know what, impossible is nothing, I can actually do this. And even he was hesitant when they first meet to even say, I don't even know, I must have lost my mind. Hitch actually kind of gives him that, he convinces him, he gives him that confidence, like, look, for you to be out of your mind, that's a good thing. There's a lot of crazy people who have been able to achieve the impossible, and you're going to be one of them with my teachings. And Kevin James and them three in these in the title of the role is amazing. So supporting cast, you got, as I mentioned, you got Allegra Cole, Amber Valletta playing Allegra Cole, who's also a model. You got Juliana Mary, you got Phil Bosco, you got Adam Arki, you got Adam LeVar, you got Robin Lee, you got Nathan Lee Graham, and Michael Rappaport, Jeffrey Dover, and Paula Patton. So you got a very diverse cast who were like in their 20s and 30s at the time. And as I said, the best thing I love this movie is just the setting is in New York. As I've told many times, New York is Richie Rich's home away from home, and it's absolutely fantastic with this setting and location in there.
Okay, so if we go on the story, the setting is in New York, where you have Alex Hitch, who is a professional date doctor who coaches like men in the art of attracting and getting women in a genuine long-term relationship. He's pretty much very successful, but then of course Albert Brennaman, played by Kevin James, becomes his big task, where he in the investment firm, that's the company that I mentioned earlier, is Albert Brennaman trying to get the Allegra Cole, the celebrity Allegra Cole. As this is going on, of course, between like Albert and also Allegra, Hitch basically finds himself falling for the beautiful Sara Melas, who's like a gossip columnist, and she's a cynical workaholic. Sara is so much one of those ones, she's possibly like scared of like falling in love and finding like an actual possible man, that she just keeps herself working. She escapes for her work. So while Albert and Allegra's relationship progresses, like Hitch finds it difficult to really connect with Sara, because Sara is very like putting a wall there. She doesn't want any like man to go in, and Hitch pretty much tries every tactic to get the beautiful Sara to bend down and fall to her knees. And throughout the entire process, he keeps his career secret, claiming that he's just a generic consultant. As the story progresses, Sara actually finds out Hitch's true identity, and once she finds this information, she even confronts him. His house, again, Hitch doesn't really know like the sudden change in Sara's behavior, and she then once she actually leaves Hitch's apartment, she actually then goes she publishes it in an expose in the main gossip column, and Albert Brennaman actually sees this. And a funny scene when Albert Brennaman actually attacks the store owner, the one who's selling like the newspapers. He goes ballistic, so much so that the police come to arrest him. And at this time, things are starting to fall down, because of course Allegra finds out Albert actually hired Hitch, the date doctor, and then Sara even finds out that this date doctor, this consultant, she was the one she was falling for, and she was the one who was getting information on all these women, especially her. Then comes up to this speed dating, so it's where these young up and coming professionals can meet, and singles nights and there. So once that actually comes there, Hitch actually basically meets, of course, Sara and also Sara's friend, and he basically tells them like the reason like why a guy like him is needed in New York, because guys want to find in love and they don't want to make the same mistakes like he did, falling in love with a woman, breaking their heart, and feeling so scared to approach a woman who can genuinely they can have a relationship with. And he tells that the guy also mentioned Vance, who was basically went to Hitch just in order to get a one night stand. He declined him. He wasn't ever gonna do a consultation with him. That's not what he does. And he basically tells Sara like in an angrily way, like, you need to get your facts straight. I would not work with a client like that kind of pig. So towards like the climax of the film, pretty much like Albert and Allegra, they're pretty much able to resolve things. Like you have a cool scene where Albert basically even meets Hitch in his apartment, and he tells him that I can't get Allegra out of my mind. Like this is just a job, as Hitch believes it too, because Hitch is pretty much feeling like he's already lost Sara. Like he doesn't want anyone to come in his like zone, and he pretty much gives up on like love and happiness. But Albert tells him like, no, this wasn't that, this is just a job for you, but this is life for me. So he goes after his woman, he goes after Allegra, but Hitch actually beats him there before the punch, and he finds out that Hitch actually did nothing he did really nothing, or the advice that really helped Albert get Allegra just liked Albert. Allegra just liked Albert just for him. And this like information, this really like this gives Hitch like a new like hindsight, like wow, like you just, that stuff really worked. So like once Albert meets Allegra and Hitch together, like Hitch, he tries to like attack, and they were like, what, attach Hitch, like what are you doing, what were you doing, women? Find out it's just a giant misunderstanding. And once Hitch is able to see that these two genuinely like each other, regardless of their differences in life, differences in stature or status, they generally like each other. He then goes after his woman. He goes after Sara. He goes there to her apartment, but he finds out that Sara is now moved on and is with another man. It turns out to be a hoax. It turns out to be a sham. It turns out that Sara was playing the date doctor. She was not in the new relationship. That was actually her sister's husband, like her brother-in-law. And you get a nice like happy ending where the two main characters, Sara and Hitch, embrace, and that's pretty much the story of Hitch.
Before I get my final thoughts, let me talk to you about the soundtrack. Right, so the soundtrack has artists from a lot of the popular ones in the 2000s. So the album was produced by Columbia Records and actually reached number 5, counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on the Billboard soundtracks, albums, and it also hit number 35 on the Billboard 200 charts. And you got a lot of artists who, again, and this is why this movie is special to me, is like I remember in the MTV generation of like Justin Timberlake, Usher Raymond, Kelly Rowland, of course the whole Destiny Child. Most of those artists actually perform most of these artists actually perform on this soundtrack. So you got A. Marie, It's Just One Finger Got Me Slipping, It's Just One Finger. We all know how hot that track was at the time. A. Marie appears on this album. You got John Legend, Na 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 Na. You got also Sleepy Brown, Big Boy. You got Mark Ronson, Heavy D, and the Boys. You got Joe Smith. You got Omarion from B2K. You got the OJs, you got the Temptations, Jimmy Cliff, and Kevin Lyndon. I remember leaving for school in the morning, then coming back. These songs were on. The music in this one fits the mood of New York, and it also fits the vibe of this movie. A romantic comedy that is very light-hearted, and is even now into this day is a very timeless movie. So the soundtrack, definitely, I believe you could even listen to the soundtrack even without the movie, but even when you're listening to the soundtrack, you will still get visuals of this movie. My final thoughts on Hitch that came out in 2005. So as I said, very much like for me personally, this movie is very outstanding. It's a movie that came out possibly at a much needed time. To see a movie like this, which is very uplifting, it's a great movie to watch, and it is so nice of just like, it's funny because when this movie came out, it came out such a different curve. Not even just for movies, but even for Will Smith. Because as I said, Will Smith at this time, Will Smith was again doing blockbusters. He was saving the world from aliens. He was fighting crime in the streets of New York. He had Enemy of the States, which came out not too long before this. And Will Smith does well to carry this film, especially with his excellent supporting cast. As I said, the chemistry between Eva Mendes and Will Smith is off the charts, and you could really see them as a couple. He could have been with her instead of Jada Pinkett. Why her? I don't know why. but it's a great chemistry. What I love as well is, and I said the cool thing with this film is a lot of to do about messages. This film related to me, if I can take a move from moments at a time, is there's been guys who have sometimes wanted to basically be with this woman, and this woman, they believe that this is their all be all and end all. Sometimes it's not supposed to happen, as it happened to Will when he was in his college year. He was overly nice to Robin Lee's character when they were in college years, and she thought he was corny and lame. And she went with the guy, probably the guy who's not even now only, and he actually took this was actually a lost scene from the movie where Will actually confronts Robin Lee's character when he's older. And Will, who is now in another phase of his life, Alex, who has another phase of his life, he doesn't even say like, you broke my heart, you did this. He just says, nah, I moved on. And that's like the best way. The best revenge is success. Sometimes you need to go through that pain in order to like get back up and level up. And that's what you see Alex do in this movie. And it was so cool showing the scenes. And then when you see like with Kevin James, Albert Brennaman, is that the woman likes him. Amber Violetta, Allegra Cole actually likes Albert, but it's like the whole part of just having that cojones to actually go and just tell someone how you truly feel, and then not changing himself. Like it goes onto the fact of when Allegra actually says she pretty much just liked Albert for who he is. Pretty much that's the person you really fell in love. And it's sometimes what guys do too much nowadays, like going way too much or to impress like the woman. And if they really just like you for you, they're the keepers, and that's the ones you should be looking at, not the ones that are just the most beautiful, because again, old girls can be easy on the eyes if they use the right enough makeup, right? But it's the ones who are gonna be there for you in your like tough times, the people you can spend times. Oh my gosh, I sound like a date door. But the ones who are just there for you. That's why I really got the message of this movie, and just really having the balls and not really giving a shit what you think, because the pacing is very good. It's not a long movie. It's not very complicated. In some ways, it feels like a very expensive Disney movie. It's a film that's really not complicated. It's a movie that anyone can watch. You can watch that with your couple, your partner. You can watch that as a family. And yeah, it does show that you can get a happy ending in relationships. And maybe this movie is for you. Of course, it's not serious like other romantic films. Like, this isn't Focus. If you like Focus with Margot Robbie and Will Smith, this is a complete different film. And the funny thing is that actually came 10 years after this film. And even mentioning Focus to this, because again, that's how you see times change. Will acted with the great Margot Robbie. You know something was going down between them. That was where like a black man could actually, prosecute kiss a white woman on screen. And the times had changed. The Kardashians had come out, social media had been there, so it's a different time. And I've seen, I remember I watched Focus in the cinema, and I still believe Hitch is a much better film than Focus. Focus's problem is they try to overcomplicate it to the audience, believe that the film and the ones that made it were so much smarter than the people who are gonna view it. And I highly recommend Hitch from 2005. So folks, that is my review of Hitch that came out in 2005. As I said, I highly recommend it. If you haven't watched it, what are you waiting for, folks? Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And remember that money never sleeps, and neither do I. And Richie Rich is out.